This next series, we're going to continue to look at our multi-directional wall drills with emphasis on our crossover wall drill. Being able to teach an athlete how to optimize the posture that they need necessary to get that crossover position on the field is critical. When we look at our crossover wall drills, it allows us to teach the nuances of how their body needs to rotate and how the posture needs to work in concert with the hips and the knees together to allow a more effective crossover on the field. When we look at this, we want to start with a posture hold, just simply to teach the position, and then we'll teach that load and lift so they start to get a sense of actually how to perform that crossover relative to the wall. That allows them to get a sense of the force and the rotation that is needed to optimize it on the actual field or court. So we're going to start by having Natalie get into our crossover posture hold position. If we reference back to our cut example, she's going to bring this leg out about a foot outside of her. From here now, she is going to replace that with her inside leg. That puts us at a slight lean into the wall. This lean doesn't need to be 45 degrees. From this position, she's going to bring her outside leg up and across as if she was starting to go into acceleration. So note as she brings her knee through, she locks in here. We want to see about 90 degrees relative to the body. We want to see that that front foot is right up under the thigh, and again, that knee is less than 90 degrees. This puts us into a position brilliantly if we're on the field to transition right into acceleration. The other major thing you want to notice, especially because she's in cleats for all of our multi-drills, her heel's off the ground. Therefore, that daylight allows us to slide a couple credit cards up, if you would, underneath. Call it the credit card rule. But it also allows her to rotate in because she doesn't have enough hip mobility to keep her feet straight ahead. So it's critical when you're teaching both the hold and the load and lift to allow that heel to come off so we get some natural rotation. Go and relax. Once they have the capacity to handle that posture hold, they understand it left and right, then we want to start introducing the load and lift. So she'll start in that position. When I ask her to load down, she will load down. Notice I might have a little bit of a hitch to get myself squared up. And then on the lift call, she's going to punch through as if to wedge on in. Lift! Hitting that position perfectly every time. But again, notice I'm now going to need to have a bit of rotation in that bottom leg. So especially if you're in cleats, almost allowing a little bit of a bounce, a little bit of a lift off is okay. If you're in flats with no cleats, that rotation will happen a bit more naturally. Let's go ahead and address the wall. Nice and strong, inside leg replace, outside leg up and across, lock it in. Think of the hips as headlights. She's turning the headlights towards the wall. Shoulders are square, head's gonna be straight ahead. She's watching the play develop, making sure she tracks the whole time. On the load call, she'll lean on into it and load. Good strong squat, head to heel strong as steel. Think of this as an angled single leg squat, hip, knee over toe. On lift, punching through and lift. Beautiful. Load. See now long, lift. Load. Again, leg comes out completely straight, not kicking it back. Lift. And relax. It's exactly what we want to see when it comes to our multi-directional wall drills, emphasis on the crossover. In this next series, we're going to discuss the crossover. The crossover is one of our most important transitional movements within multi-directional speed. When we think of both shuffling and sprinting, those are primary forms of mobility, meaning the athlete's actually going to shuffle for a period of time. They're actually going to run for a period of time. When we think of the crossover, it's actually an evasive maneuver, whether it be offensively or defensively. And therefore, I am always transitioning into and out of the crossover, oftentimes with the purpose of immediately going into our acceleration, or cross over to a base to then have to suddenly reverse my direction back the other way from an evasive maneuver standpoint. So the crossover is a critical pattern within the context of all field and court sports. All the while, just from a general movement competency standpoint, the ability to load the body, create cutting and angles in a different position, all the while creating the rotation within the trunk and the hips helps develop a higher level of an athlete IQ, if you would. So let's start by having Natalie embrace that same base position and go into a crossover to base against a assisted and resisted bungee, same as when we did the actual shuffle. Okay, Natalie, let's have a good strong base position. Now notice, when I give the go call to Natalie, she's going to stay in the base position. With the athlete, I'm going to typically ask them to cheat inward just a little bit to start to get an understanding of the inside leg pushing. As she drives that inside leg, imagine she's driving it towards me. All the while, she's going to explode her outside knee across. Almost imagine she has a pane of glass on the front of this inside knee. She is trying to take that knee and smash through that glass in that direction. If she was to continue going, she should be in a perfect position to go right into acceleration. Hence the reason sometimes we call this a lateral two-point start, because many athletes have to go from the crossover into acceleration. On my go call, she's going to violently create that torque, create that rotation, push, but then notice how quickly she, boom, drops right back down to that base from a resisted standpoint, and then I'll bring her back, same movement, assisted. Okay? Good strong base position, roof overhead, stay nice and low, and go, punch, stick. Beautiful. Now notice on that repetition, Natalie went up just a bit. Air time is not our friend when it comes to change of direction. She's now going to keep it nice and low and give me even more of an explosive turn with that outside leg. And go, punch, that's it. One more time now, I want you to notice a couple things. Imagine her hips are headlights. She's trying to get those headlights punching that direction as if she's turning a car. If you work anywhere where there's snow, imagine they're swerving that car. She's trying to get those hips driving in that direction. We're going to take it up again, even faster this time. Set, and go. Pop, that's it. Staying low, coming back, and go. Punch and stick. Beautiful. Especially on the assisted side of things, notice how important it is for them to decelerate. Start thinking about these positions on both sides, assisted and resisted, looking very similar to shuffle and cut. Arguably, these are more demanding if we start adding in the cut, which is exactly what we're going to do next. Now, she's going to cross over out. The second her feet come down back to the ground, she's going to explosively use that outside leg, punch the ground away, come right back down to base. Okay? Set position. Good and strong. Roof overhead. Lean in. On my go call. And go. Good. Punch. Coming on back. One more time now. Natalie's going to go on out. Second her foot hits the ground, she's going to cut, crossover right back to me. Set and go. Good. Punch. Coming back. Even farther now. And go. Explode out. Punch. Coming back. One more time. Explode away from the bungee. And go. Push out. Punch. Coming on back. And relax. Notice, as I pull her back, she has a tendency, which all athletes do, to simply step over versus cross back. Hence the reason we want the athlete to be fast and explosive enough that the second they feel that assistance, they're able to capitalize and get that knee all the way across. An athlete's ability to do crossover to base, crossover cut back to base, creates an unbelievable tapestry for the crossover competency. Once they're able to do this under resisted and assisted conditions, we then can take away all the resistance and assistance and let them go free, sequencing this transition with shuffle and sprinting. In this next series, we've taken off the belt, we've taken off the bungee, and we now want to start introducing and bringing together a couple core movement competencies into what we call a movement sequence. So now Natalie's going to take the shuffle, the crossover, acceleration, and cutting and put it into an athletic pattern that very much so is similar to what you might see on the field, both offensively and defensively, whether we're talking evasive patterns or tracking type patterns if I'm a defensive opponent trying to get down on an offensive one. When we think about crossover, shuffle, and acceleration, there's a couple different ways we can link those together. We're going to start with the easier of the two, which is going from a shuffle to a crossover to an actual sprint. Now imagine you're in sport. Specifically, think of an inside linebacker. I'm tracking either a running back or I'm tracking a quarterback, and I'm shuffling. I'm watching the play develop. The second I see that the play has now been committed, what do I need to do? I need to cross over and sprint directly at that play so I can hopefully make the tackle. That's what we're starting to take in here. We also think of soccer as another example. I'm shuffling, I'm working against someone, and I get beat. What do I have to do? I have to cross over and close the gap on being beat to try to regain my defensive position. So oftentimes, shuffle is used to track, acceleration out of the crossover is used to attack or close that space. Let's take a look at Natalie doing it. Good strong base position now. On my go, we're going to shuffle. And then Natalie, once you get somewhere in the vicinity of that cone, let's see you burst into that crossover, sprint on through. On my go call. And go. Good. And burst. Beautiful. Now, as Natalie's walking back, we're looking for a couple things. Number one, the second they finish that shuffle, we want to see that that inside leg is immediately punching that ground away, driving them into that good 45 degree as they turn the headlights on the car, right? Shoulders work counter to the hips. This time, though, what we want to see Natalie do is spend a little bit less time in the air, and as she crosses over and drives that knee through, immediately punch that ground away as she goes into acceleration. One more time here, Natalie. Good base position, and go. Good shuffle and burst punch. That's it. Wonderful. By minimizing that air time, it allows her to quickly transition to that acceleration, whether it's getting away from an opponent or being able to close on an opponent. Now, what happens oftentimes in sport is you might be committing to one direction, but all of a sudden get redirected. Especially if you are a defensive athlete, what's the goal of the offensive athlete? To try to take your position, get you out of it, and then take you on your area of weakness. So the ability to shuffle, cut into that crossover and accelerate, as if a reverse was to happen in American football, allows the athlete to have more robust capacity to get into that acceleration mechanic. So we're going to have Natalie start in her base position. Notice, she's going to shuffle out. She's immediately going to cut. She's going to shuffle back in. The second she gets to me, her foot's going to go into the ground. She's going to cross over out of it and burst into that sprint. Okay, Natalie, on my go. And go. Shuffle out, bring it back, and burst. Beautiful. Now, a couple things you'll notice athletes do. When they shuffle in and they get in this position, sometimes their energy will lift up and out, bringing that inside foot up. We're going to have Natalie do it again, and now what she's going to show us is she's going to keep her weight inside as if to lean into a wall. That weight on the inside leg is going to allow her to have a faster trigger leg off the outside line and then immediately transition into that crossover and sprint. One more time here, Natalie. And go. Shuffling out, punch, and burst. That's better. Wonderful job. Notice, the best athletes have the capacity to have that preemptive strike. They drop that center of mass, they hit the ground doesn't hit them. You can start to add in specific decision making. We could do this in a mirror drill context, as well as adding in other multi-directional movement skills to take these sequences and have them match your sport. At the end of the day, we're providing you some examples, but think back to the lecture. Look at all the movement competencies that you feel are important for sport, start building those movement sequences, and then add the specific decision making. And that's exactly how you want to take your crossover, shuffle, and acceleration, bring them together into a strong movement sequence.